Interpersonal relationships. What to do when one of the parties does not want to resolve conflict and to harmonize the relationship. About interpersonal relationships. You had a last question dedicated to it. Dedicated to what? Interpersonal relations. How to build a relationship with someone, or something, in general. A common life scenario. If appears a tensor, or a conflict situation, there is a choice to either stop such a relationship, to exit this conflict zone, or, in opposite, as you once described, to deliberately plunge into it, to get the lacking experience in full, but in full can take years of experience accumulation. Yes, this is what I'm implying. Where to find this borderline? Because when such relationships are extended, they affect. You are talking about not just an isolated case, but about the process of relationship with some person who cannot get to a more harmonious relationship with you, irrespective of how much you try. Maybe you can find motivation for your own positive inner states, but the other person does not want to move forward and cannot handle the situation, right? Yes. It is necessary to be specific here. And what is better to do in such situations? Yes, because if you extend this relationship, then it affects the whole group. It affects the focus dynamics. What does one do in such a situation? Where is this barrier, this line, from which it is necessary to part ways? Well, I personally, expel those, or most often threaten to expel those, who, for a long time, do not find motivations and opportunity to establish a more harmonious relationship with someone or me, or in some other way, show their destructive attitude. Maybe not negativity, but for a long time experience non-positive inner states. Because you can experience negativism, but also you can experience fourth, arglamuni, which, whenever possible, immediately will provoke the lowering to the third level, arglamuni. Therefore, when I see that I exhausted all the possibilities, and then, if a person has so deepened into his inner states that it appears to be not possible for me to bring him or her out of it, then there is another way. Again, another attempt to bring the person to a more qualitative level. If he or she values a far, when this danger or perspective to be kicked out, or when I finally expel, and this is when a person grabs his own head and starts to think more quickly. And he begins to give up many ambitious things that were valuable for him before. When you evaluate, okay, either you're leaving today, or in fact are leaving, or to change something within yourself, because a person knows, if to prove to him that this non-positive inner state should not be present anymore, should already be part of this experience, then he understands it. Simply by inertia, he thinks that it is fine. And it seems that nothing will happen, that everything will be fine. Everything will be just like that. And that with such state he was accepted, is accepted, and will be accepted. But when you weigh everything, it is clear that either I myself have to change, or the situation will change for the worse for me. Then that person begins to make some radical choices, and gives up some of his old conceptions, and makes steady efforts to engage in some new conceptions, in new relationships. But Such expulsions occur very rarely. Usually, I try to let the person experience such inner states, which would make him understand that if he does not change for the better, then some unexpected circumstances can happen. What you are saying now is understandable. You kind of suggest to us, well, at least become like me, and if cannot do that, but in this situation, in this relationship, everyone considers himself of a great value. What makes you better than me? How are you better than me? Who are you? Yes, exactly. And exactly, there is a confrontation at this level. Why should I make a compromise? Why not you that do it for me? And conflict comes at this level. And all attempts to find some kind of a solution that satisfied both of us, well, I don't yet have enough energy informational connections to find it. And I understand that, on the other hand, I can say, that is all. Goodbye. Be happy. We have nothing else to talk about. But I understand that I will stay at the same level at which I said goodbye to this individual. You see, the problem here is that you do not qualitatively change your opinion about the other person. Knowing Iissiidiology, you slightly move away from it, but often, and a lot. In the sense that, as you fixed yourself in some conceptions about a person, so you, for years, stay with these conceptions, without changing them, without making any efforts to change your opinion about that person in relation to what creates the problem. If you change your opinion about a person, then and your attitude will contribute towards that he himself begins to change in such a direction in your individual worlds. Because in our individual worlds, we actually perceive people in accordance with our own deficiencies. Why I so rarely resort to extreme measures? Because I realize that somewhere it is my lack of attention. Somewhere I did not think enough about that person, not enough imagine them, or not enough more closely interacted with them at some higher levels. And in such a way, this person has fallen out of the team, out of my relationship, say, with the Afarians. I do not have time to deeply and for a long time engage with everyone. But my conceptions about Afarians, about the people who surround me, are more qualitative. The fact that I know that more qualitative them do exist helps to ensure that people gradually change for the better around me, becoming more and more similar to the ones who already exist in more qualitative continuums. In such a way takes place the rotation of personal interpretations in the direction of their improvement. In general, around me, my surroundings are qualitatively improving, but the ways that I achieve it is another question. That is what you're asking. To a large extent, depends not on the person with whom you cannot find a contact in resonance, but on you, on such conceptions that you have formed about this person earlier, and now keep projecting onto this personality. And by projecting, you pull out from all the options of his personality that are available, those that resonate with your views. And even if there is a room for the person to act more qualitatively, that is in his focus dynamics. In a multipolarization, he somewhere acted more qualitatively, but you do not unpack it in your focus dynamics. You unpack what you expect. Since you expect that person has earlier proven himself in such and such a way, then you expect from him such a reaction again. And since you expect it, then the other person has to put a great effort to change his reaction. So, such circumstances should arise, so that his individual world began to dominate over the perceptions of your individual world. Understand? A person must show that I am not the one who you think I am, and your eyes will open. But really, what am I doing? So, if I will be able, regardless, the active forms that I have, to pull out the better ones about him, then there is a sense in continuing this relationship. And if I am unable to find anything more qualitative, say I'm crushed under current forms, then probably the most rational would be to stop this relationship. Rather, to separate ourselves in our space, so to later, yes, and maybe after a while, when you meet this person again, you, when drawing him into your own individual world, that is, during a conversation, a meeting, right? You will notice that those representations that you had earlier about this person, that he or she has changed in your own individual worlds without you. And you were not thinking about that person for some time, having faced such of his interpretations, which is already qualitatively and completely different. And you begin to notice, oh, how much this person has changed. Changed because you yourself have developed in more harmonious refocusings. Do not think about the other person, about the one who you have left in his continuums, in his worlds. And when you met again, then in more qualitative continuums, and that person became more qualitative, you have met a more qualitative version of this individual. So, such refocusings can take place. There is no need to get hung up on such variants of unstudied aspects. If necessary, then is it easier to part ways? Just when you more qualitatively develop yourself, and your conceptions change there. And what was accumulated about someone, it all goes away. It gets synthesized into more qualitative conceptions, forms, including this person. However, you may not think about him, and do not know anything about him, right? But your understanding, your ability to understand some inner states deepens. It increases. Consequently, the fact that you could not earlier understand some behavior aspect of another person, well, after a while, the more qualitative you get the ability to understand. And as your understanding deepens, then, and the perception of the other person, after some period of time, becomes more coherent, more profound, and you begin to notice different things, not what previously got your attention, but the new that has appeared in front of you. In those interconnections that got formed in you, that got already synthesized, and give you an opportunity to look at people from different angles, from different levels. So, it is possible to conclude that if you can think about the person with the best forms of him, then keep going. Keep going. Keep going. And keep influencing with your own example. Not with irritation. Do you understand? Because such situations exist. For example, a father is an alcoholic. he drinks. He drinks for 10 years, and so on. And the opinion has formed that this person can only be like this, and cannot be different. And attitude towards him is like towards such a type of person who has been for a decade like this. And the reactions are clearly like this: rejection. And if, for example, to remove these swarm forms and to start treating this alcoholic like a normal person, to choose such a moment, not when he is drunk, but when he is in a normal, inadequate condition, and not to speak and to teach him, supposedly, you are wrong, others suffer from you, because of you is this, that, but differently, say, what do you like? Do you like this? Talk about his interests. What about this? And how do you do this? If he has a hobby, ask him about his hobby, and he will start to open up. He will begin to open up, and with this openness may emerge in some very different relationship. And he, for example, may start having new thoughts about you. Oh wow, he is interested in, oh, this is interesting. Something will start to become clear in his mind. When he starts to open up, and already after seeing you in a new light, and your attitude, because he also has old representations of you, then, in fact, you can get to such of his configuration, which understands that to drink and bother family and people around him is silly, and that it hurts him, and all that stuff. So, if you start to address a man as a drunk, knowing that he is a drunkard, that all these talks are useless, which have happened thousands of times, then nothing will work. But, if to start seeing him in the ever-changing individual, and changing for the worse as well as for the better, then gradually you can get to a more qualitative person, who himself will understand that one day in your individual world, that what he was doing before, drinking, that it was all stupid. It was all kind of that he lived his life in vain, in this alcoholism, and the person can radically change. But for this is necessary to exert patience, time, and desire. The trouble is that there is no desire, as such. People wish for all this to change by itself, without our efforts. But maybe this person drinks to develop in us some certain skills, some criteria, to give us the ability to quicker become better. This applies not only the example that I gave, but also to any other example. A wife or husband does not understand something, thinks differently, cares about different things, say about material things, or they have different from your interests, and you cannot understand why Iissiidiology does not attract them, and you cannot understand why they have such an attitude. And if to try to persuade him by force, you mean with the fist? Yes, maybe with what is around. Maybe it is better than to simply, without regret, part ways, with regret about yourself. About myself. Good. Thank you.